I think in my romantic relationships, I have a tendency to want to get out before I can get hurt. If someone like saw us for who we really are, they like wouldn't fully accept us. I'm HANAKATT, your host, and I recently have been uncovering my fear of abandonment. Alrighty, y'all. We are back for another cozy episode of BULGOGI Pod. I'm HANAKATT, your host, and yeah, welcome back to another week where we're getting a little deep. And so yeah, just like for some background, your girl is 26. I am living in Los Angeles. I am dating, and I recently have been uncovering my fear of abandonment. And so yeah, I guess like kind of the reason why I want to talk about this today is because I think that the fear of abandonment is one of those things that has been coming up because specifically one of my friends recently got into a relationship and we're really, really close. Like it's always like been us being butt buddies. And I think when she got into the relationship, like really don't get me wrong, I'm like so happy for her. But I also think attached with that are feelings of, oh, she's going to leave me to hang out with him. Oh, she's not going to be as emotionally available simply because she doesn't have the capacity. Oh, like I've gone through this before where my best friend will get into a relationship and I'm just a second option. And so, you know, when I think about like all those feelings, honestly, those are like all lies and like false narratives that I've been kind of like playing in my head because I will almost self-sabotage. No, I will self-sabotage when I feel like I'm being abandoned by withdrawing from the person. And so like even though, right, I consider us very, very, very good friends, like I notice myself, like if I'm going through something, like I won't bring it up to her as easily. Or like let's say like I won't even like text as frequently because I'll know like, right, like she's hanging out with her boyfriend, whatever. And so I think like all these feelings kind of like came to like a culmination in that like I have just been like having a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, which are fine, but I think what's not okay is like I was masking them with like other things. And so, you know, just because I love like a science-based, research-heavy type of episode, you know, just to like kind of go over things, looking up what the fear of abandonment is, it's like worries about like losing a loved one or being left by a romantic partner. It can manifest in maybe feeling or being afraid that they might be left out, left behind, or rejected. And this doesn't have to be in a romantic relationship. It can be in a romantic relationship. But it can also be in our friendships, in our familial relationships, just any sort of relationship that we have. And for me, I tend to notice that a lot of the fear of abandonment very much stems from someone's upbringing, right? Like we always talk about, oh, like what was your childhood like? What's your childhood trauma? Just because like those early bonds that you form with your caregivers informs a lot of how we go about our like young adult lives. And for me, and I don't want to get super deep into this because I very much like don't blame my parents, but essentially like because I come from an immigrant family where my parents had to work to support us and like provide us with just like the basic, needs. And obviously like my parents like want to spoil us. They were working a lot, and so that meant that I was mostly being cared for by my grandma, and I really love that I was like essentially raised by my grandma, but it also comes with like a set of hardships in that me and my grandma don't speak the same language. I could not communicate with her or my grandpa very well because, I mean, honestly, even if I had been able to communicate in Korean, that doesn't necessarily mean that like I could communicate my emotions in Korean. Like I think that's like, obviously another level. And so I think like that's kind of like where it stemmed for me. And then to add more fire to the flame, is that what you say? Is that the term? Knowledge? Is that the phrase? We'll just go with that. To add more fire to the flame, I also think that early on I had certain friendships that didn't necessarily go like as like one plans, right? I think a lot of times there are people who are like, me and so have been friends since like the first grade, like since kindergarten and whatnot. But for me, because I moved around when I was younger, it was, every like 3 to 4 years I was moving around in my like honestly like very early like developmental years, like throughout elementary school. And so I think that the moving around and maybe not feeling like as missed by people as like I wanted to informed how I like interacted with others. And what I mean by this is like I remember I had 2 big moves. So I moved once in first grade and once in fourth grade. When I was moving in fourth grade, I had my best friend at the time. Like we had been friends for like 2 years, like so close. I remember telling her that I was moving and she didn't seem all that upset about it. It was very much like, oh, okay. And like she kind of like moved on. Like I think she was like focused on making new friends, which makes sense, right? I look back and I'm like, yeah, this is a smart thing to do. But I think that like I had felt just a bit hurt, like, oh, I thought that this would have impacted you more, because it surely was impacting me. And so that was probably like one of the earliest signs or earliest tent poles of me feeling as though I was being abandoned in a friendship. And then moving on, there was one more instance in middle school where I had a huge falling out with my best friend, and it was like over a guy, which looking back, like so stupid, so dumb, but also like that happens all the time. Like even like when you look at like people who have been friends for like however many years, like 20 years, like you get the classic examples of like, oh, we broke up, or like there was a friendship breakup because of a guy. And so that was kind of like another big instance of me feeling like, oh, the people that I like hold close to my heart and like maybe consider like the closest to me like will always leave. And so I didn't realize that in order to protect against getting that hurt, what I've done is chosen to not be as vulnerable and to be a bit closed off, even with my closest friends. And I feel like I've maybe spoken about this before, but for the longest time, like I did not open up to almost anyone, like especially during middle school. I was extremely, extremely, extremely lonely and just sad girl. Like that was peak Tumblr days, like peak, like, oh, depression is cool. Like, oh, I like hate everybody type vibes. But I kind of ran with that. And looking back now, I didn't hate everyone. I think I really like craved that, but felt like I couldn't necessarily express it because I don't think at the time I had the tools or even the language to like communicate that, let alone like even like narrow down like what I was feeling. All I was feeling was like a bit sad. Like I just like always felt a little bit lonely. But because of Tumblr, like I literally thought that was normal. Like guys, why were we like being so dramatic on Tumblr? And so I think like right, middle school didn't open up to people, and like my friend Michelle was one of the first people that I ever opened up to. And I think it's that like for the first time I felt like I had known someone for long enough and they had stuck around long enough, and I felt like they came to the friendship without any judgment. Like if any of you guys know Michelle, like you will 100% know what I mean. She is the most understanding and empathetic and like people person I have ever met. And she really like provided that like one of the first safe spaces for me to like actually let her in, because prior to that, like I would just bottle things up. I wouldn't even tell my sister because, right, I have to play older sister. I wouldn't tell my parents because I never wanted to worry them. And like, I already knew that they were stressed. And so like, you know, by like normal, like work things, by like life things. And so I wasn't going to add on to that. And so I always felt like a burden, like speaking up. But again, like, yeah, Michelle, just, I thank her so much for like being who she is and like accepting me and all my flaws, because I think like that was maybe the first step towards me healing my relationship with like vulnerability. And I think, you know, that kind of like brings me to my point of like, right, we have our fear of abandonment. We have like a loose definition. For me, I just shared like the reasons why I think I have developed this. And then, right, it plays out, like I said, in my friendships. How does it play out in my romantic relationships? I think in my romantic relationships, I have a tendency to want to get out before I can get hurt. I know that I am, like, I wouldn't say I'm risk adverse, but I'm very risk adverse when it, like, comes to my feelings. Like, I think that I'm like just like very scared of like opening up and then like getting hurt again, potentially. Because, right, I've done that before where like to my best friend in 7th grade, I opened up completely and like I felt betrayed by her. It was over a boy. And so like I just like never want to go through that again. And so I have a tendency to like protect myself, right? And that makes sense. It makes sense that you would want to protect yourself. But something that I've been telling myself, something that my friend Diane has been telling me, something that I've been telling other people like in advice form is like, let's just do things scared. Like it doesn't matter, right? Like if you're scared or not, like let's just do it. And so I have been actively working on doing things scared, on being patient, and like, right, I've kind of started dating again, and so being patient and like developing relationships, because I'm also realizing that like you have to be careful with who you open up to. I don't think that you should be opening up to everyone. And so how do you identify who is quote safe to open up to versus like maybe not so safe? I think it just takes time to see like who they are, what their character is, and like building a sense of like trust. And, you know, I like was speaking to my roommates about just like their relationships with maybe the fear of abandonment. And one of them had said that a big reason why she was able to work through her fear of abandonment is because she gained confidence in time through of her friendships. And so, right, I don't think that it's expected that like a potential like fear of abandonment is like solved in a matter of like months. Like I think it's years of friendship, because oh my gosh, guys, like this is so crazy to me, but me, Ali, and Joyce, next year is gonna be our 10-year like friend anniversary, which is like so crazy. Like that's so crazy to me. I just like can't believe like I met them when I was 17. Like I was still like unable to buy lottery tickets. That's the thing, right? At 17 or 18. Yeah, I was still unable to buy lottery tickets and cigarettes, but like don't smoke. And so, right, when I like reflect upon like how many years it's taken me to open up and like really get vulnerable with Ali and Joyce, like it took a minute. And more than that, more than the opening up, it took me a minute to realize like they're not going anywhere. Like, right? Because we've talked about on the show, like we've talked about friendship breakups and normal breakups like quite a bit. And so what makes me think that like Ali and Joyce like won't leave me? I really do think it's like the time that we've spent together. And then another point that like one of my roommates had brought up was like she's confident in her efforts in the friendship, that it was enough essentially. And I think that is like such a beautiful thing. I think that being confident in your efforts is something I like have never really thought about, but right, it makes sense. Like if you are investing your time and energy into a relationship and it doesn't flourish, it wasn't meant to be. But if you're investing your time and energy and effort into a relationship that you want to build upon, that the other person also wants to build upon, you should have confidence in that, like your efforts are paying off, you know? And so I just think like that was like one of the most profound things like I've ever heard. And then I also think that when we like think about the fear of abandonment, I think a lot of people could potentially have this. And I'm not going to diagnose y'all. Y'all can diagnose yourselves and maybe like talk to a therapist about it. But I think that when I was speaking to another one of my friends, something that had come up was that he thinks that everyone has a fear of abandonment, right? And I was like, everyone? And I was like, okay, why? And he was saying that it's because deep down we think that if someone like saw us for who we really are, they like wouldn't fully accept us. And I was like, whoa. Because this is a thought that like I've had kind of looming in my brain for a minute. Like, and I thought that it was just me. Like, to be quite honest, I think that I was like potentially a little like embarrassed that like I don't love myself enough to like have the confidence that like somebody would fully accept me. But I think it's true. Like there are parts of us that like we maybe don't like. There are parts of us that like we want to improve upon. And so it would make sense that there are parts of us that we personally don't fully accept about ourselves. And so how would we expect somebody else to fully accept us? And like, I think like, right, like I am Christian. I've grown up Christian my entire life. And like, that's something like that I found a lot of solace in my faith, is that like, even though I'm not perfect, even though I am like a very, very flawed human being, there is grace in that like we're forgiven for our flaws. And so I think that's like something beautiful that has like come out of like my Christian faith. And so that all kind of brings me to the action items. How are we working through our fear of abandonment? How are we improving and changing and growing as human beings? I think for me, the first step was communicating with my friend. And so I communicated with my friend literally today I like called her on the phone and like had just like told her like, hey, I'm like kind of going through it. And we hopped on the phone and like I literally started bawling because I just needed to like get it off my chest. Like, I think that I am withdrawing because I feel like you're gonna leave me. And she assured me like, Hannah, I literally tell my boyfriend that you are number one and he is number two, and he fully accepts and knows that. And I literally started bawling, and I might start crying now. And like I think I just like really needed that reassurance. Like, I don't think like I think I like take people's words very seriously, especially with this friend. Like, she's someone that like keeps her word. And so like I believe her when she says like, I'm not gonna leave you. Like, I'm not abandoning you. I like love you and like will always be here for you. Like, it's a 2-part relationship. Not only does there have to be effort on her end to like not like, you know, fully like only hang out with her boyfriend, like those vibes, right? We all know those vibes. But then it's also on my end, like it's my responsibility to not withdraw, because I've done this. Like, I've done this in romantic relationships. I've especially done this in friendships when they get into romantic relationships and I'm like, oh, okay, like, yeah, another person is leaving me. And so by communicating this openly and like me having the confidence that like she would be understanding helps so much, because then it allows like her to make sure to like kind of keep me in check. Like, hey, don't withdraw. Like, hey, are you withdrawing? You know, if she feels that certain way, and just like making sure that I don't switch up just as much as they don't switch up. Like, I think that has been immensely helpful. Immensely helpful. And then like that's with friendships. And then with romantic relationships, to be honest, guys, I'm working through this right now. Like, literally presently. I am very much trying to make sure that I don't convince myself that I don't like a person because I feel like maybe they might like be losing interest, right? Because I think it's so easy, like for me, when I feel like the other person is like maybe not texting me as much, or like maybe our conversations don't feel as fruitful, or whatever it might be, I will just kind of be like, oh, like they did this and so I don't like them anymore. Like, I'll almost like find reasons to not like them. And so I'm very, very, very actively trying to fight this, making sure that I don't end things abruptly. Also making sure that like the reasons I am processing, the reasons I do think I have for like maybe not thinking that this person is the right person for me, like I'm really trying to make sure that like I'm not making those things up. And so when it comes to romantic relationships, I'm really trying to take my time and I'm really trying to be patient, and like I need to be a little bit more communicative. So I'm working on that. And then when it comes to like all the like childhood stuff, it's again like reasoning with myself that like my parents didn't do this purposefully. There was no malintent. It was like just the circumstance, which sucks. And like, who knows? Like, even if like my parents like maybe were a little bit more emotionally available, like let's say my mom was a stay-at-home mom, who's to say that I wouldn't have like a later experience that would just like still cause me to have a fear of abandonment, you know? And so, yeah, I think that when it comes to you guys, and like maybe if you guys are feeling this type of way, how I would go about like sorting through your feelings, or at least like how I did it, was tracing back to those like pillar moments where it was like, oh, I felt lonely there. and kind of just getting it out in the open. Like, over the past 48 hours, I have been a terror to Allie and Joyce and my friend Diane. Like, I've just been like word vomiting. Like, oh, like I had this friendship breakup when so and so and so and so, and like, oh, like my parents were working a lot when I was like, I was literally ranting to all of them. And like, maybe this is also like a part of like knowing yourself and like knowing how you process. So I have my journal here. I literally I journaled 4 pages. I haven't journaled in so long. Actually, it's more like 5.5. And so I know I like getting things down on paper. I also know that I'm an auditory processor. Like, I love a little chit chat, and so that's been really helpful. But I'm like so grateful that I have like a supportive community around me where like they're just like here to listen, and like when I need advice, like they'll give me advice. But for the most part, like I think I just like I have a need to feel heard. And like I think like even the fact that like people are willing to like spend like their precious time like listening to me, like that makes me really happy and grateful that like I've built such like a strong community. And so yeah, if you guys can't tell, I've just been crying a lot because like I think it's like just a lot of like feelings to work through. Some of them are happy tears, some of them are like overwhelmed tears, some of them are like sad tears, but we'll dig into all of this as I process. But for now, I hope you guys like honestly feel like less alone if this is you. Like I never heard anyone talk about the fear of abandonment when I was like growing up. Like I didn't know what this was, but yeah, I hope this helped. If this made you feel any sort of way at all, please share it with your friends. And continue to support the podcast. We are on all platforms. I update the Instagram probably the most frequently out of all of the social channels. But yeah, I hope you guys had a beautiful Thanksgiving, and let's take on this last month of the year very strong. And like yeah. Thank you guys so much. I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, bye.